at the Fort Smith Regional Art Museum, and I'm the development director. We're here in almost downtown Fort Smith and working hard always to expand our programs. But I'm not a program director, I'm development director, and I write grants, and I know that RAM is interested in this area, and we have our education director with us today that can talk more about that. But I'm just trying to learn more about this topic in general so that I could help RAM develop the funds to develop a digital art program. And so we'd love for everybody to come see us. Hope everybody's doing well, and I'm glad to be a part of this group.
Thank you. And those of us in nonprofit love you, development directors. So thank you for doing what you do. Next on my list, we actually have Skylar Moore jump to the top of the list. And hi, welcome. It looks like there's a connection problem. We'll come back to you, Skylar, because you're, at least on my end, your video has frozen. So next we'll go with Katie, and I apologize, I'm not even going to try to say your last name. If you could help us with that, so please go ahead.
No problem. My last name is pronounced Wah, so it's deceptive. I'm the department head at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith, sorry, the art department head at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. And so of course, at the university, we're always looking. Oh, hello.
Here I am. Sorry. Oh.
Skylar, we're gonna let Katie go real quick and we'll come back to you. It looks like your video is working better now.
Okay. Yeah, so at the university level, of course, in art, we're always looking for ways to build our curriculum and address new media and processes that are, of course, tied to innovations in technology. And of course, this is really important to help students meet their futures. But one of the things that we encounter, of course, is that this requires constant training and resources for faculty to remain at the forefront of their fields and to understand how technology folds into all of their fields, because it really does. So time is an important thing. It's not just financial resources, it's also time for faculty and instructors to be able to train and continue that kind of continuous development. I find also that our students, of course, are described as digital natives, but and they are in some ways, but they are more internet natives rather than technology natives. And so they often will struggle with actual computer use. And I've had multiple students describe themselves as not very into computers, or they'll describe themselves as being more into what they call traditional media. And so they are setting up this kind of false sense of distinction between traditional media and the digital or the technology, or however they're defining that. And in part, it's because I don't think that they always really have much fluency with computer use. So there's a lot of work there to be done to help them to understand how these things are actually entwined, how what they're calling traditional media is absolutely part of the same kind of creative and haptic experience as is traditional art and technology kind of practices. Those things are all part of the same kind of impulse. So there's a lot of modeling that we can do in terms of how our curricula are built, and then also, again, how we're actually looking at the creative process. So there's kind of some reverse programming that needs to be done there, I think, but also, again, lots of support is needed for faculty because they are very busy and they need to, their time needs to be honored. So there's a lot of really interesting things that we can do at that intersection of art and technology. And of course, there is this longstanding tradition, obviously, we all know this, that these things are not, this is not a new marriage, this is not a new partnership at all. And so there's also kind of a historical piece there that we can kind of help our students become familiar with so they understand how these things have always been hand in hand. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. That was great. And I'm not sure I got all of my notes on that. You had a lot to say, but that was fantastic. That's why we record. So yeah, I appreciate that. Skylar, are you, I think that your video seems to be working well now. Are you good to jump in?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I also come from the same University of Katy, from Fort Smith, Arkansas, and my name is Pablo Guerra. Sorry, I'm using my wife's computer. I don't know, her name came on the screen, but do you want me to? I wrote something here about. I am from the theater department, and I am trying to integrate always technology in our classes or in all the process of theater. As Katie said, this is nothing new. You know, theater has been in the avant-garde of lighting, sound, and for a long time. But particularly us, we are not in the avant-garde of the avant-garde, you know. So as a progressive organization of storytelling, we plan to integrate advanced technology in the numerous families of art disciplines that encompass the theater. We plan on using the tools of technology in every aspect of the theater creation, from creating opportunities of research outside the traditional methods. And with this, I mean, you know, we are big at researching theater for creating our worlds. And I was thinking, because researching in the internet is already a traditional method, I think, you know. But different things, you know, like where technology will get us to talk to people far away or see data that live data, or I don't know, that's still to be thought about. But I think technology can get us out of traditional methods of research. Understanding and work with audience perception is another big thing that technology can do for us. We know visual perception, and we try to play with that in theater, but I think technology can measure that. We can custom-made somehow our own desired experiments or whatever for our purposes. And we want to use technology from communication between us to the process to the performance, right? To the produce, from process and for product, both. Technology presents itself as a perfect additive to any of the creative disciplines that are part of the theater. Think of scenic design, construction, costume, lights, sound, properties, makeup, painting, music, projections, etc. So why here, why now? With no professional theater, we become the voice of the river valley in northwest Arkansas as theater goes. We are small, but technology can serve us as a speaker to reach the cultural needs of the area in our discipline. I hope that was what I was like to presenting ourselves.
Yes, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And it's good to hear. We haven't had a lot of people involved in theater in our conversation, so I appreciate that you were able to come and represent theater arts. So thank you so much. Okay, so next on my screen we have Anne Greenwood.
Hi, I'm Anne Greenwood. I spent an entire semester teaching online and can't remember not to mute myself. No, I teach at Henderson Adjunct there, and I'm an artist working in Hot Springs. And I don't have a whole 2-minute spiel, but I have a few things to say. I want to build on what Katie Waugh said about haptic art and the technology, and how students often perceive these as completely different realms. And as someone who works in both in my artwork, it's always surprising to me. So integrating students into both realms, and to give an example, you can have drawings with video, with projection integrated into one piece. They don't even have to necessarily exist next door to each other. So I think that's part of one of the teaching goals I have. In addition to that, teaching goal is, of course, making the kind of technology equipment is what I want to say, available sometimes for student use and for institutions to have. And that's always something, trying to get the next projector, trying to get the next thing, that can be a struggle and a need. And then in my own work, I primarily use technology to research and draw upon data, or to talk to people across disciplines. And I know we all use this technology already for communication, but I can't stress how important that is in my own work. So if I want to talk to people who are studying coyotes and how they travel, and they happen to be in Chicago at the Coyote Institute for Urban Coyote Studies, I can do that, and I can get data from them across boundaries of disciplines in a way that I can integrate into my work that, of course, I couldn't do without the technology use that we have today. And without the ability to sometimes use that data or put that data into my computer and interpret it and play with it. So as a working artist, that is some of the way that I see technology really helping us, is to not only bridge, make new connections inside my field in the fine arts, but also to make connections between fields in the academic world and in other places. That's me. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anne. Sorry, last notes here.
Quickly.
Okay. Okay, so next on my screen we have Gary, another name I'm not going to attempt, but welcome.
Sure, it's Gary Udodge. So I see a lot of familiar faces here on this call. I'm the Director for Career Education and District Innovation for the Fort Smith Public Schools. So part of my job is we're building a new school here in Fort Smith called the Peak Innovation Center. And it's really set up primarily as a technical training center in partnership with the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. We're focused on advanced manufacturing, including computer integrated machining, electronics technology, and automation. We've got an information technology program that has network engineering technology and unmanned aerial systems. And we have a health sciences program that'll focus on the LPN, CNA, and then like an EMT, EMR program. But in addition to that, we are working with a consultant on setting up a visual arts program. And many of the people on this Zoom were involved in a meeting a couple of weeks ago where we're trying to flesh out some of the details of that and how to integrate arts into these technical programs, and really how to tie in traditional arts, technical arts, and arts entrepreneurship into these technical programs that we're setting up. So arts integration is part of it, and then a standalone visual arts program is also part of the plan. But we're at the very beginning stages. So it's nice to see all these experts here.
That's awesome. And I think I actually, as you're talking, I know some connections I think that will be made on this that you may or may not have already. So that's exciting that you guys are doing that, and that you have that innovative thought to bring the arts into the conversations around those technological processes. So it's exactly the conversations we're wanting to have. So thank you so much for being here. I hope your meeting went well last week.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, lots of good input. Thank you.
Okay, so next I'm looking at Delana Vaughn. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, I'm Delana Vaughn. I'm the education director at the Fort Smith Regional Art Museum. And my really first experience with, everything being online was right during the beginning of the pandemic. All my classes, all my programs, everything was just hands-on, in-house. And we were just at that beginning, stage of thinking, oh, we should do a digital art class. Pandemic happened, everything was, we were shut in. And so my whole thought process changed. But what I realized during that is that, when that happens and you're trying to teach children or adults how to do art online, it's completely different. And then also, not everybody in our community, has access to, this type of technology. The internet can give you so many different things, and you can learn about so many different everything. But if you don't have that access, then you're not going to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And so we've ran into that type of thing. I've had classes that have failed, classes that have been wonderful. So I'm just trying to figure out what's best for our community, because we do live in a community that, we have our side of the town that really, has access to technology, they have connections, they can do things that, the poverty side doesn't have. So that's probably more my focus, is just trying to make sure that the community as a whole can get everything out of art and technology together, because it is so instrumental together, because that will create jobs for people within the community, if they're integrated. But if the kids, adults don't have that, then they're not going to be able to really launch and move forward. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I've been thinking about, since I've been, in the midst of just doing most of my stuff online, is just trying to help everybody get to where they need to be. So that's all I have to say.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, we're hearing that unfortunately a lot, that part of it's economic and part of it's just rural access to broadband and technology. And I think that our state had kind of a rude awakening when all of this happened. I think people took for granted how much access there might have been, and we realize now how much there isn't. So thank you. So next on my screen, we have Stephanie Nugent.
Sorry, my mouse went off and then it wouldn't turn the mute off. I'm Stephanie Nugent. I am the president of Cyber Spider Marketing Service. We actually do web design and app development. I have artists who do print and everything. I'm here to try to find a way to give kids and young adults an opportunity to actually combine the art with the technology in a real world situation to create needed projects. I've actually worked with some of the people here on website projects in the past. So I'm here as a resource and to learn things that I can provide and ways to do my job better to help people everywhere. We like to specialize in nonprofits, so if that helps. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. No, that real world piece is awesome. And I hope that you and Gary have talked, because it sounds like that's perfect right there. So awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Next on my screen, we have Bob Nakey. Take it away.
Hey, greetings all. I'm retired from University of Texas, Austin, up here as a techno slacker in Hot Springs. I worked for ABC and NASA down in Houston during the course of my years in Austin, and I'm a New Yorker from an arts family based out of Lincoln Center. I'm on the board of directors of the Metropolitan Opera auditions. Chief engineer of KUHS over here. I build solar-powered public stations that have very low overheads. It allows us a lot of creative facility. I put one in Austin as well. And I'm an electronics designer and a performing musician. Teach at National Park College Innovative Technology Center. We have a full-blown maker space, been going about 4 years. All the good stuff's in there. And basically the haptic interface between technology and any physical art is usually based on these two devices. One's an Arduino, which was a class project to make a very small computer in Italy, has a picture of Italy on the back, and the Raspberry Pi. So if you see something that's moving or interacting with somebody that's a piece of art, one of these is in there, a $9 computer or a $35 computer. So having the ability to program these, which is relatively straightforward, really gives you a lot of power as far as making physical interactive art. And they're the primary two devices that are used for this. Being a an admin guy, I always think on the ground level. I make things go. I'm thinking this is an education. In my mind, this is a cross-pollination education thing. We're bridging the gap between the two hemispheres by cross-training the artist, technology, and the technologist artist, a little bit of background, and all of a sudden that creative thing gets going, and we start to cross-pollinate ideas like you do in a university where you have people talking from different disciplines. So. Getting familiar with these kind of things, very inexpensive, what are called microcontrollers, is primal to making interactive haptic art, in my opinion. And that's where I see, one of the gap bridgers. I'm sure, Gary, you know what I'm talking about there. So, and P.S., Aaron and I have studied Russian together for 5 years. Pravda, девушка, so anyway, that's how we know each other. Anyway, I'm a hands on the ground, make it go guy. I'm not an admin. So when it comes to put stuff together, make it go, talk to me.
Thank you so much. And thanks for throwing in that Russian shout out for me. But yeah, thanks for being here, Bob. Okay, so next on the list, I have John Jeter is next on my screen.
Hey, how are you? Actually, my side of the family, we're Jetters. So I don't know. Well, that's a whole other story. Jeters and Jetters. We're Jetters. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm the music director of the Fort Smith Symphony, and I can talk about the symphony all day, but we're the oldest orchestra in the state. It was founded in 1923, and we're a fully professional, per service regional orchestra. With a lot of really interesting projects and some national projects. We obviously, like a lot of people, had challenges with COVID, which is not very kind to the performing arts, as we all know. We were able to, however, give all of our concerts, and we're in a very small percentage of orchestras in the country that were actually able to give, a lot of orchestras gave concerts. We actually were able to give our entire subscription season. We gave 12 live performances, and we did all the protocols and all that. So we're on to, like all of you, on to recovery and watching very interestingly at the current state of affairs, which is not terribly good right now, but at least we have the experience of giving concerts with really high numbers out there. So whole other subject. In terms of technology that we've done and what we're interested in continuing pursuing, about a year before COVID, we tried things, simple things like having a lot more interaction with our phones, which is ironic because in some of our other programs for kids, we literally tell them to stay away from their phones. But we understand that, the phone is part of life. So we actually encourage people to have their phones on at concerts because that's where our concert programs are. We switch to on the phone. And we're looking at ways to have interactive concert programs sort of during the performance. and we have some real exciting possibilities there. We've used a lot of video. We did videos. We, of course, streamed some concerts the way a lot of orchestras did last year. We did it as an extension of your concert ticket. We never intended it to replace the live concert. And in the music world, streaming has definitely, it's not a good thing to continue pretty much across the board. It is, you know, it's something that hopefully technologically we can look at again, but for the arts, for the most part, it's been a huge money loser. So that's an interesting case of maybe right now where arts and technology have intersected a little bit, and maybe it hasn't gone as smoothly as we would have liked, or just as successfully. We've had some projects in the past and are looking at new music things, collaborative events with composers, specific to some composers who use technology in their works. And we'd like to expand that in terms of doing some smaller concerts. And for those of you at the university, we're going to have a meeting. You probably don't know that yet, but I've been talking to people about coming together for some big projects where we have, you know, we can have the different arts disciplines, and there's a lot of opportunities there for technology. Our website isn't great. It's going through a total upgrade now, kind of offline, and we hope to have a lot more interaction there. There has been an interest in, I don't know if it's going to happen, but we all use music, of course, for our concerts. And more of our orchestra members are starting to use iPads instead of printed music on stage. And they have a lot of interesting advantages. And we've had a few people potentially talk to us about some grant possibilities to have a lot more of those on stage. There's some interesting things you can do with those. We have a history and are continuing to do music and film concerts. We love that interaction. And I think the most recent development, which I can't give you a lot of details on because we're still in the works, is we are officially now housed at the Arkansas Colleges of Health Education, their Wellness and Health Research Institute. So a big part of our future work is going to be in research and education for the arts, particularly music, and how they can help with wellness and health. And I'm assuming that there's going to be technology involved in some research, and also we're going to be looking at things like music delivery, I think, and ultimately how much more effective music could be live or acoustic as opposed to, you know, something that's you know, broadcast electronically. So there's a lot of potential there. And I talked to, you know, Gary, I'm glad, the Peak Center is awesome. You need to get some music in there. I'll put that, and we've talked about it before. So I guess there's a lot going on. We're coming out of this situation and hopefully not going back into it for too long, but coming out of it with way more possibilities across the board than we can even tackle right now. We also have I just sort of took it for granted. We also have an electronic string quartet, like where all the instruments are electronic, and we have all this electronic equipment. And we took a year off, obviously, during all the activities. So there's a huge opportunity there to do more. So, and I know I'm leaving things out. Oh yeah, one final thing that's interesting is our symphony staff has changed, and we're a small staff, but our two other folks who work, not to be ageist, but they're young and they're very tech savvy, and they have 5 music degrees between the two of them, and quite a bit of discussion is to, you know, modernize and look at different things, different ways of doing things, and actually trying to use tech more with everything from audience services to performances. So I think it's going to be fun to sort of let them loose and see what we can accomplish here in the next couple of years. That's the short version. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That's really cool. That was a lot of stuff. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Pretty exciting stuff coming up.
It is exciting. Yeah, you guys have a lot of cool stuff happening up in Fort Smith, so it's fun to hear about. And so last but not least, we have Michelle Ratcliffe on the call. Michelle, if you want to jump in.
Hi, everyone. I'm probably have the least amount of knowledge is for arts and technology. That's not my forte. I'm actually an economic development and workforce manager for the Hot Springs Metro Partnership, which is the economic development side of the Chamber of Commerce in Hot Springs. So this is, I know it's a task force, but it's also a learning opportunity for me. We are trying to do all we can to build workforce, to create pathways and be an economic driver for our students, for careers, for entrepreneurial aspects. So trying to see where these, the arts and technology are intersecting that can allow us to create interest and help our students to really find some great careers and be taxpayers instead of tax collectors. And whether that goes into industry or whether it goes into, like I said, an entrepreneurial act, but where we can help to create economic movement for the community. Mine is very short and sweet, so I'm looking forward to each of you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I think that you being here and tying into that community and economic development piece is, you know, a huge component of the conversation that we're having at Arkansans for the Arts, and part of what makes this so important. And so with that, talking about big picture and moving forward, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lenore Schultz, and she's going to kind of lead a discussion on big picture and future vision with us. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here.
So I'm actually going to lead off by taking a tiny little trip into the past and how we ended up here. Many of you are familiar with the Amazium or the Arkansas Discovery Network. A lot of those, well, actually, those roots came out of the Exploratorium in San Francisco. And this whole idea of the Arduinos and the Raspberry Pis and all of these things that you could jump in and play with. Those of us that were in education, and I was in education with museums, director of museums, etc., were brought out to the Exploratorium, met all these different people. My background's in art. And I thought, holy mackerel, this is like so much fun. Obviously, we saw the art implications. We saw the technology implications. We saw the implications with children, implemented all of these different experiments through tinkering studios in museums throughout Arkansas. So then fast forward to a conversation last year with Senator Elliott. And she said, what can we do in art that, you know, is just the really big idea? And I've been harping on the creative economy for decades. And I piped up, I said, well, what we really need is an art and technology boot camp. Because I was thinking about all those playful moments and breaking down the walls between silos. And as folks that have been with me before have heard me say, the basic idea was, if you could get all these creative people in the same room and get out of their way, they're going to figure it out. So in reality, this is one of those meetings of people throughout the state where we go, wow, if these folks had the resources and could connect with each other and see what else is going on out there, and if, which we finally do, we had the ear of the legislators, because that's what's different here. We've never been able to speak directly to the legislators before. And so this next part, I really want you to apply what I'm going to call magical thinking. And I'm not being juvenile in that. I'm being very deliberate in that because, for example, I just saw a program yesterday about the MIT Design Lab. And they were talking about the moment that they were talking about touch screen technology. And people telling them that they were crazy. Who would want to touch their screen for technology? Obviously, they developed these things years ago. Well, the reality is that was all magical thinking. And so I want to open it up to you with this question. If we had a magic wand that could make anything happen, what would be your big idea, your dream, or vision for 5, 10, 20, 50 years down the road? What is that? Jump in.
May I?
Yes.
Okay, this may not be popular, but I would say my big vision is to have an arts and technology ecosystem that is separate from jobs and separate from economic conversations. Because when you're talking about the MIT kind of innovation, and other kind of examples that we can talk about, we're looking at spaces where people are not exactly sure where that end product is headed or where that end result is headed. They don't have an economic necessarily always, they don't always know exactly where they're going with something. And so in order for that innovation to actually happen, we need to sometimes give people the space to just go where the ideas lead. And so, it's not necessarily going to advance some of the initiative here, but if we could have a space that is somehow devoid of those practical concerns, that would be what I think is really necessary to truly advance what's actually innovative about connections between art and technology.
Well, and to that point, and I know someone else is going to jump in next. If you knew me, you would know that I'm all about what that creative economy and that entrepreneurial thing is going to be. At the same time, there has to be that what I call a creativity petri dish, where you've got some people, and we've called them artists. Most typically, they say, well, those are the artists, those are the dreamers, it's those people. Well, the reality is it's not those people. We don't know where the next great idea is going to come from. And I think that we have the opportunity to actually present both ideas. Obviously, education is a great petri dish for it. Who's jumping in there?
I'm just thinking of the spectrum. On one hand, you have the fruits of a successful society where we can pursue the arts and technology for its sake alone to see where the ideas go, versus making moral and every other decision by its profitability. On the other end of the spectrum, can both of these things exist in the same place? I believe so, and because the profit motive is going to put too much strictures on the creative process. And then the other end of the spectrum, not only can end up doing nothing, but that it is fun to just be creative, the creative spirit. But and then there's a whole spectrum in between. So businesses and stuff can spin off, and crazy new ideas that don't have applicability right now that might in the future. I have a transporter rash cream because I'm using my molecular transporter and I have this rash, and so I need the cream anyway. So you can come up with ideas that don't have an application right now, but maybe have some application in the future. But those two things can be housed in the same location. I think, though, like I said, where you have people from different disciplines talking together, the arts and sciences used to be in the same building in a university, a long time ago. And when you put those people together, which are considered disparate in the spectrum, I think that as soon as you would be amazingly fruitful and magical, so I don't know. I think it's totally possible. You don't say a darn thing about it. You fund it as well as you can, and then you just do it. You throw the people in the room, and you get creative, and you give them, okay, what about this? Throw an idea in there, and then people just churn on it. And that process is really down to think of what the idea is, get all the information and resources you can, and pour all that stuff into your head, then be completely quiet, let your brain do the filtering, and then the idea has that, catalytic moment. So I think that can really happen.
There are, typically in industry, business, we would call it research and development. And then in education, we would call it pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, where they're playful and they're still allowed to intersect across all these silos. And then things kind of start to get a little bit more regimented. Well, I can understand that. We're not here to try to reinvent any systems. However, I could easily see where we're able to introduce more cross-pollination, a phrase that I'm also very fond of, and certainly in education. Who else wants to jump in? John?
It's all good stuff. I mean, you talked about magic wand, right? Like, 20, 30 years. I mean, I guess if I had to think about it in terms of, I guess we're talking about our state, right? So it would be great to see well-balanced, healthy people. And that means people who take care of themselves. I think the balance is going to be people who have an interest in a lot of things it would be great if people had a sincere involvement and interest in the arts as part of their life. It's really interesting, the discussion we're having. And, we have to talk about like art and science. You can't talk about the two in the same sentence, but at the risk of sounding cheesy, it really is all connected. And it's so unfortunate that we have to talk about different things. You're talking about maybe art in the schools versus art, well, like a professional setting. It's really all the same. And, to me, I think what this message that needs to continue to have happen is someone, Beethoven writing a symphony or someone painting a painting is really just as miraculous as all those NASA astronauts who figured out how to send people into space. It's a different sort of thing. So I guess I would like to see a lot of barriers like not there anymore, and see our state have a very well-rounded, known as having a very well-rounded lifestyle. Excellent. And I think that's how, and we've talked about maybe some disparities in our community. And, the schools, the public schools provide actually some really great things. Like, for example, art and music, anyone can do music in the greater Fort Smith area for free. All they have to do is, be exposed and decide they want to do it. So, and as time goes by, obviously there's going to be this technological component involved. I think it's only natural. Sure. So I guess my wish is some like holistic thing, 30 years later.
Absolutely. Excellent. And did you want to jump in there?
I was partly just going to say I appreciated Katie's comment. This is my Katie Love Fest today, apparently, about there being what I would call, Lenore, a pure research in the research and development. And maybe that's the language that comes from business, that there are areas where you do pure R&D and you just play until you get to the thing that's useful. And I think that's important to keep an eye on when we talk to legislators, maybe. But I also wanted to say that at least in education, we sometimes talk to legislatures or talk to people about the fact that what we're really doing is problem solving, whether we're in the sciences or the arts, or that's the skill, that's the thing that's happening, as Bob says, when you're tinkering on the ground, making the solution. And that those are two ways we can talk about those cross-pollinations. As we're building problem solving people, we're building those who can problem solve, citizens. But I also wanted Delana's comment about access and internet access was really powerful for me. I had students who drove to the McDonald's parking lot to use the Wi-Fi to attend class at a university. And that's not ideal. It's not even not ideal. It's terrible. And so, and I certainly had the same experience. My husband teaches at ASMSA. I have other friends who teach at Central and around the state. It was a common experience. So if there's anything that we could say to them about universal access, please say it loudly, because my gosh, if I can have a student access time with a curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art about work that they've never even been exposed to before and won't get to go see and won't hear about in that way, that's wonderful. That's powerful, and that needs to happen. That's my soapbox for today.
I think this stuff is all available. If you think you need it, it's available. And we use some little radios from Brazil to shoot around mass amounts of internet for very low cost. And we replace complete systems that were more expensive with just shooting massive bandwidth, 10, 20, 30 miles for $100 per station. So we could, if you have a center, we can feed massive amount of internet for $250 to another location, and each subscriber module would be, $50 or something like that. However the structure would be on top of that, the hardware is so available and it's so easy to implement now. So we can say we have the means, the cost is not high, and that's you have to have that tool.
Okay, so I got my brain just went bloop in that. So I want you to clarify a little bit here. Are you saying that you've been able to use broadband access?
Okay, your audio blipped. Basically, the reason that Al Gore said that he invented the internet was that they made large chunks of Wi-Fi frequencies available to be used without licenses, and made Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all this stuff possible. And before this, if you wanted to transmit in the United States in any way, shape, or form, you had to have an FCC license. So giving these large blocks of microwave space for free and unfettered use made all of these things available. And there are small radios, and if you want a dish on it for $100 to $120, that can pump 200 megabits of internet 10, 20, 30 miles line of sight to another location, and then be distributed to a whole bunch of users at extremely low cost. And like I said, these land up replacing systems for us in broadcasting and other media, where we would have used microwave dishes or $10,000 radios and stuff, where these things run on a solar panel for, I have one on the hill for 6 years now, just sitting up there on a solar panel, pumping internet up to the top of the mountain. I've given away free internet to other stations and stuff that need it on the top of the mountain. Here, you need a cup of internet, whatever. And we put up another dish, a little solar panel. And so this stuff is cheap and it really works well. And it's a perfect answer for distributing internet to a location like that, especially many parts of Arkansas where the terrain is relatively flat. And it can be relayed to a mountaintop with a solar panel and back down into a valley or whatever you need with at very low cost.
Okay, my mind is just blown. All right. Does anybody else want to jump in here? Because I know we are momentarily going to be out of time. Yes, I'm going to say Skylar. I'm so sorry, because you don't.
Pablo. Yeah, sorry, Pablo. Dreaming big, I would like to technology help to find more ingredients to the moment. Like we control some of them, you know. For theater, we try to control them, but there are others that we don't even know they exist, you know. And I would like to discover some more so we can have more control over the moments that we create. And that's very abstract, but be more concrete, talking about accessibility to technology. I would like to see resources directed toward those who might have accessibility in terms of economy, but no possible access to technology, because it was, I'm talking about senior citizens, right? Giving them with tools, creating tools for adaptation so they can be part of the narrative. Like, for example, in theater, we know all the wonderful things about theater for seniors. That's a given, no? In communication, in memory, socialization, all of that. But they need sometimes adaptations to be part of the play, you know, even if they have to hold a walker, you know, we might make that walker part of the character or something. So technology working toward making seniors more presence in the art. I'm not talking, a walker is a piece of technology, but I'm talking about bigger thinking, you know, bigger, like we're talking about internet access, you know. Who care? Seniors don't care if they have internet access or not, because no, and I'm generalizing, but some of them might have not jumped in the train early enough. Like me, I saw the internet for the first time when I was 30, you know, and so all of these are things that they don't even they are not part of, you know, and I would like to come back and bring them in this conversation and see how money is invested into bringing seniors as part of the arts and of the civic discourse and everything, and because it is really sad, and particularly in Arkansas, I think, or because I don't know where they are, like I never see them. And yeah,
Come to Hot Springs.
thank you.
Excellent. Delana, you want to jump in?
Yes, I wanted to. Yes. Okay. I'm curious as to where people with special needs fit into this. We talk about arts and technology. Where do we fit the people that are autistic or paraplegics, or how do we make that something that they're able to do? And yes, they can. Some of them can do one or the other, but if you really work with them, there has to be that, because these people just, if we start them young, they're gonna grow and be a part of. They can grow and be successful, people within our community. It's a big thing. We tend to, focus on everybody that's normal, and then,
these devices are the key to that, because you can just pick any type of haptic input you would like to this, whether it's eye movement, skin, anything like that, whatever they're capable. And most of these folks are already using adaptive devices, whether it's a joystick or whatever it is. But
we have to make it accessible to them.
Yeah, anything that they're already using, we could use that as an input device, or you can come up with any other environmental variable that they can modulate or change as a haptic input to an artistic thing. And I just wanted to show these two, the size of a video projector now for inside art items. You can put 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of these and be projecting from the inside remotely, onto screens inside of a thing. I just want to throw that in there because that's what I want to do with this one. But yeah,
that's what I was talking about, the seniors as well, who use that technology. That's what I was trying to explain. Thank you.
Make it simple, so simple to interact. Not a problem.